Buried for 3,000 years, insane archaeological discovery confirms biblical prophecy. The ground shook as if the earth itself had awakened after a deep, 3,000-year slumber. A team of archaeologists stumbled upon a tomb that was supposed to be fiction hidden beneath layers of sand, clinging to the remnants of a world lost in myth. The air buzzed with disbelief and anticipation. Built from stones so ancient they breathed secrets, this was no ordinary dig. It was a portal to stories past, a pulse of adrenaline echoing through every heart present. The discovery wasn't just historical, it felt divinely orchestrated, as if fate had intervened, rekindling forgotten prophecies. As they unearthed treasures and relics that whispered of another time, eyes widened at the sight of shimmering gold and inscriptions etched into the stone, names of kings long since returned to dust. Every object glimmered under the harsh sun, as if inviting them into a dialogue with their own past. A thrill danced in their veins when they found an artifact that looked disturbingly like it belonged in the book of Exodus. Could this truly be the sign foretold by prophets? This was more than a mere excavation, it was a celestial alignment, a chance to rewrite their understanding of history. But as they pushed deeper into the tomb's maw, a shadow flickered just outside the lantern's reach. Whispers threaded through the air, chilling spines, while the heavy silence was punctuated only by the sound of their rapid breaths. Each step felt like a heartbeat of apprehension, growing louder, more urgent. Why had this tomb remained hidden for so long? What should have remained buried was clawing its way back into the light. Was it treasure or a curse? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The atmosphere thickened as the team stumbled upon a sealed chamber. An eternal stillness hung in the air, tinged with decay and the scent of lost time. They exchanged glances, hearts racing, an unspoken contract of dread and exhilaration gripped them. What lay behind those intricate carvings? Could it be the answer to age-old questions, or a warning best left undisturbed? The moment stretched, the silence deafening, and a single thought echoed fiercely in everyone's mind: was this truly the discovery of a lifetime, or had they awakened something ancient and vengeful that was never meant to resurface? The air crackled with tension as they gathered around the sealed chamber. Julia, the lead archaeologist, took a step forward, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. She hesitated, caught between the thrill of discovery and the gnawing sense of danger. "Should we break the seal?" she whispered, her voice trembling just slightly. Mark, the youngest member of the team, shifted nervously. "What if it's cursed? What if we're not ready for whatever's inside?" He attempted to meet her gaze but couldn't mask the fear flickering in his eyes. The rest of the team murmured, their breaths collectively held as the weight of their decision loomed over them. Then, the urge to uncover history took over. After all, great discoveries never came without risks, right? With an exchange of nods, they set to work, chiseling away at the intricate carvings that had kept this entrance secured for millennia. Each strike against the stone reverberated through the stillness, a heartbeat thrumming in the darkness. Dust danced in the flickering light of their lamps, momentarily brightening before fading back into the shadows. As the last remnants of the seal crumbled to the ground, the chamber creaked open like a mouth whispering secrets long forgotten. A wave of stale air rushed out, and with it, a bitter tang enveloped them. Anna, the historian on the team, swallowed hard, her stomach lurching. "This is it. This is a moment that changes everything," she said, voice steady though anxiety luminously threaded through her words. They propelled forward into the chamber, eyes wide, hands nervously gripping their tools like lifelines. What lay beyond was a cavern draped in darkness, but even in the dim lantern light, they could see rows of stone slabs lined against the walls. Each slab was adorned with hieroglyphics and etchings, almost alive, at once whispering and crying out to be understood. And then they saw at a central altar, the focal point of their dreams and nightmares. Set upon it was a glimmering object that caught their breath, a golden tablet, intricately carved, blazing with unearthly symbols. Hands shook as Julia reached for it, a magnetic pull luring her closer. The closer she got, the more she sensed an ancient energy thrumming beneath her fingertips. "Don't touch it." Mark's voice pierced through the haze of lustful curiosity. "It could be dangerous." His warning came too late, as she brushed her hand against the cool metal. A sudden, blinding light flared from the tablet. The ground trembled violently beneath them, causing them to stagger. An infernal noise erupted, a hideous cacophony of whispers and screams once more rising, writhing like a storm unleashed. "What is happening?" Julia screamed, her throat tightening in fear, panic rippling through the group. "Make it stop." As fast as it began, the noise condensed into an echo, sinking into silence so deep it felt suffocating. They stood frozen, breaths shallow, hearts racing. Yet, the silence didn't last. A dark figure emerged from the murky depths of the chamber, cloaked in shadows. Its eyes glowed with an intensity that pierced through the gloom. "Fools," it intoned, voice like gravel. "You have awakened the curse hidden for centuries." Jaws dropped, and breath hitched as the weight of their discovery morphed from thrilling to terrifying. Had they really meddled in forces far beyond their understanding? Behind them, the tremors began again, louder this time, more insistent. "Run!" Julia shouted, urging the team back toward the exit. But as they turned, the doorway began to close, sealing them inside with the entity they had unwittingly unleashed. Panic rippled through the group, but there was no time. They had awakened something, and now they had to pay the price. What had they unleashed? The question hung heavy in the air, the answer lurking just beyond their grasp, waiting to drag them into the abyss. The darkness stirred with an ominous life of its own, wrapping around them like an unyielding shroud. Julia's heart raced as she clutched the golden tablet, the weight of her actions crashing down on her with renewed intensity. "We can't be trapped. Keep moving," she yelled, trying to shove the panic away as she urged her team forward. Mark was already 2 steps ahead, his breath quickening as his legs pumped in a desperate sprint toward the narrowing frame of light where their escape lay. "It's not going to hold," he cried out, eyes darting back to the menacing figure creeping closer. The dark silhouette seemed to absorb the flickering light, wrapping itself more tightly in shadows. Anna, eyes wide with fear, stumbled over a dislodged stone slab. She fell to her knees, gasping, trying to catch her breath, her terror palpable. "Get up. We can't leave anyone behind," Julia called, a lump forming in her throat. The noise, the terrifying, organic scream of walls closing in on them, grew louder as tendrils of darkness stretched toward Anna. With every heartbeat, the chamber throbbed around them, walls shaking as if the very earth sensed their fear. "Help me!" Anna's voice sliced through the panic, hitching like her breath. Mark rushed back, extending his hand toward her, ready to pull her from the depths of despair that threatened to swallow her. "Come on. We're almost there," Julia urged. But as Mark reached for Anna, the entity lunged forward, a flicker of movement that sent chills crawling up their spines. It barely glanced at the human struggle as its focus turned to Julia. "Your greed has awakened me," it growled, voice reverberating through the air like an earthquake. "You must suffer for your folly." Julia felt ice seep into her veins. She could barely comprehend the words, let alone the wrath they implied. Instinctively, her grip tightened around the tablet, confusion swirling in her mind. This wasn't just any artifact, it amplified energies unspeakable. "I want to let it take you," Mark shouted, pulling Anna to her feet, muscles straining with the effort. Julia could see the terror reflected in his eyes, and realized, with heartbreaking clarity, that this was more than ancient curses. It was their lives hanging in the balance. With a final scream of desperate determination, they fled toward the light. "Don't look back. Just keep moving," Julia yelled over the cacophony still swirling around them like a fierce wind. Every step felt heavier, the air thick with malevolence. Yet, the light ahead beckoned, a fragile promise against the chaos, but before they could make it through, the closing wall of stone grinded painfully into their ears, each moment stretching impossibly with dread. In a mad dash, Julia hurled the tablet against the stone, praying the ancient magic was real. It shattered upon impact, releasing a blinding flash that engulfed them, all at once, silence. Breathless, Julia blinked against the sudden brightness. Was this the end? Had she condemned them all, unleashed a force meant to be forgotten? When the light receded, they found themselves not in the chamber but standing at the mouth of a cave, the night sky overhead glittering. The sensation of being watched pulled at their necks as they turned. The dark figure lingered at the entrance behind them, a shadow against the stars, its eyes burning like coals of hatred. "What have we done?" whispered Anna, her voice carrying the weight of realization. "Is it really over?" Mark echoed, eyebrows knit with fear. As the figure began to dissolve into the darkness, chilling laughter echoed around them, a promise that the curse was far from broken. Julia felt dread coil in her stomach. What had they unleashed on themselves? With her heart pounding, she turned her eyes back toward the cave. Had they escaped, or had they merely begun a new chapter of horror? The unanswerable question loomed, looming dangerously close, entwined with the truth yet to be revealed. The cool night air brushed against Julia's skin, amplifying the cold sweat that clung to her. The soft rustle of leaves whispered warnings like muted voices from the past. She scanned the tree line, her instincts screaming that they weren't alone. "Why are we still standing here?" Anna trembled, breaking the silence. Her gaze darted nervously, reflecting a mind racing with dread. "We need to put some distance between us and that thing." Mark nodded, struggling to regain his composure. "That laughter, it felt like it was inside my head." His hands trembled slightly, fingers twitching as if the tension might snap him in two. Julia shared his unease and felt a twinge of guilt for unleashing whatever curse had been stored in that ancient tablet. "We move," Julia decided, her voice cutting through the tension. "The further we get, the safer we'll be." She took a step toward the trees, wincing as the branches cracked ominously underfoot, as if warding them away. They slipped into the forest, each footfall deliberate, each breath heavy with the weight of fear. Shadows danced eerily in the moonlight, contorting into shapes that seemed to mock their plight. As they pushed deeper into the woods, a growing uneasiness churned in Julia's stomach. They were being watched. Julia Mark's voice cracked, breaking the fragile quiet. What if that wasn't just a curse? What if we had awakened something we can't fight? His words sank into Julia like stones dropped into water, sending ripples of terror through her veins. "We can't think like that. We have to assume we can break it or find a way to contain it." "But how?" Anna chimed, her tone tinged with despair. "Whatever was in there doesn't just disappear." Her eyes reflected the glow of the moonlight, shimmering with unshed tears. "It's with us now." Julia couldn't deny the truth of those words. Every rustle in the leaves, every snap of a twig was a reminder of the darkness they had unleashed. But imagine the consequences of surrender, of losing hope. "Let us keep moving," Julia urged, gripping Mark's arm tightly. The warmth of his presence grounded her. They pressed on, moving in silence until a faint sound drew their attention, a low hum resonating in the air. It felt oddly inviting, a stark contrast to the chaos behind them. With every step, the hum cracked through the heaviness that had suffocated them since the cave. "Do you hear that?" Julia whispered, stepping cautiously toward the sound. "It's probably nothing," Mark replied, but the hesitance in his voice suggested otherwise. "Then let us check it out." There was something alluring about it, almost like a lighthouse calling out in a storm. It could lead to answers or traps. They followed the sound, huddled close, until they emerged into a clearing. In its center stood a stone altar, ancient and covered in intricate carvings that shimmered with silvery light. The hum intensified, wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. "What is this place?" Anna breathed, or replacing fear. The altar seemed alive, crackling with energy that pulsed in tune with the hum. Was this a place to reverse their fate? Julia felt a spark of hope, flickering dangerously against the shadows that trailed them, but as they approached the altar, the hum shifted. It grew darker, heavier, warping into a cacophony that rattled her bones. Julia's heart raced. In an instant, the words of ancient prophecies echoed in her mind, wisdom buried, a choice laden with consequences, and then, the shadows swelled, and they were not alone anymore. The dark figure that had lingered at the mouth of the cave materialized behind them, its burning eyes focused intently on the altar. "You think to challenge me?" It hissed, the words dripped with malice. "Run!" Julia screamed. But before they could move, the air shimmered, and the shadows began to coalesce around them, thickening into a storm ready to consume everything in its path. Julia's pulse quickened. Could they actually turn the tide? As the darkness surged forward, she gripped the altar's edge, heart pounding. They had awakened something beyond their understanding, but one thought rang clear in her mind: survival demanded action. What choice did they have now, surrounded by an impending storm of doom? And could the altar truly hold the key to salvation, or would it become their final resting place? As darkness rushed towards them, Julia felt a surge of adrenaline. Panic clawed at her throat. The figure loomed closer, shadows dripping off its form like oil, each movement sending ripples through the air. Its laughter, that haunting sound, echoed ominously as it reached a hand toward the altar. "Get away from there!" Mark shouted, breaking free from Julia's grip. His voice rang out with a mix of fear and determination, but it was only a momentary distraction. The shadows twisted, pulling Mark back with an invisible force, as if they were alive, responding to the malevolence of the figure. Anna stumbled backwards, her eyes wide, breath hitching. "What do we do? How do we stop it?" "Look!" Julia pointed at the altar, feeling an almost magnetic pull toward it. The carvings shimmered almost knowingly as the hum morphed into a thunderous roar, vibrating through her bones. It was as if the altar was alive, urging them to act. "Tell me you see that too," she insisted, trying to drown out the fear pulsing in her veins. "It wants to be activated. We need to harness its power somehow." Mark, still battling against the dark force, nodded, desperation painting his features. "But how? It's like a nightmare. The inscriptions, the carvings, they must mean something. We need to read them," Julia insisted, stepping forward as she struggled to focus despite the intense pressure of the shadows clinging to her mind. "Are you insane? What if it makes things worse?" Anna shouted, her voice quivering. Julia took a deep breath, the air thick with impending doom. "We have to try. Our fates are tied to this place. We either fight or surrender." With determination edging out her fear, Julia approached the altar closer. The curls of the carving seemed to dance, glowing brighter with each step she took. She brushed her fingers over the surface, trying to decipher the ancient texts. Her heart raced as the shadows recoiled slightly, as if fearful of her touch. "Julia, be careful!" Mark shouted, his voice distorted by the thickening atmosphere. The figure glared, its burning eyes narrowing as Julia read phrases aloud, trusting they were the keys to dispelling the darkness. "Restore the light, intertwine fates, balance the dark." Each word felt profound, as if she were unlocking a door long sealed. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the clearing. It felt as though a powerful wave of energy burst forth from the altar, illuminating the area in a brilliant light. The shadows writhed and shrieked, pushing backward against the onslaught, as if struggling against an unseen tide. "Keep going, Julia. Don't stop!" Mark yelled, the urgency deepening his voice. The words flowed more easily now, the energy of the altar feeding her resolve. She spoke faster, louder, drawing on every ounce of courage she could summon. But as the last syllable rang out, things took a chaotic turn. The dark figure roared in fury, its form warping and twisting grotesquely, and then silence. The shadows hovered, then slipped into a swirling vortex, struggling to maintain form before finally dissipating entirely, leaving an eerie stillness hanging in the air. But it wasn't over. A shadow stretched across the ground, rising once more, drawing together like a vengeful storm. Julia! Anna screamed, her face frozen in horror. The figure seemed to pulse with newfound power, larger and more furious than before. It pointed a claw-like finger toward the altar, rage in its voice. You have only stoked the flames, child. You dare meddle with forces beyond your comprehension. Julia's breath caught, as the altar dimmed, shaking beneath her touch. The ground trembled. They had unleashed something more terrible, something that wouldn't be contained. Now what? Mark gasped, clutching Julia's arm tightly as terror flickered through his eyes. With fear gnawing at her heart, Julia faced the shadows that had begun to thicken with an unnatural energy. Could they really turn the tide once more? Or had they just ignited something catastrophic? What lay ahead was uncertain, but time was running out. Fight or flight, team! Julia shouted. Steeling herself. What's our move? As they stared down the looming figure, the ground beneath them shifted, and a sound roared from deep within the forest. A new threat emerged, and whispers of betrayal echoed around them. Once again, the choice between hope and despair loomed. Would they stand and face the storm, or run from the wrath they had awakened? The figure loomed before them, dark and terrible, its form swelling as the air crackled with menace. Gritting her teeth, Julia felt her knees shake, but she refused to back down. They had awakened something malignant, and the cost of their hesitation would be steep. Do we run? Anna cried, her voice quaking as she glared at the encroaching shadows. No. Mark shouted, determination seeping into his tone. We can't let it win. He pulled Julia closer, their eyes locked in a desperate exchange, both seeking the courage that seemed to dwindle in the face of overwhelming dread. The darkness twisted like a living entity, more alive and animated than before. Tendrils reached out, pulsing and probing as if it planned to consume everything in its path. Look! Julia noticed the altar shimmering weakly, a flicker of light trapped beneath the weight of the encroaching shadows. Her heart raced. It's connected. If we can revive that light, it might hold it back. What are you talking about? Anna was barely able to stammer out, her panic clear. It's just a stone. It's more than that. It's a conduit. It responded to me. It can respond again. We have to release its energy, harness its strength. Julia could feel a tingle in her fingertips, and each pulse sent jolts of determination through her core. But how? Mark's voice cracked, his grip tight on Julia's arm. We can't read the whole inscription again. And what if it just makes it angrier? Julia took a deep breath, forcing her racing thoughts into focus. She scanned the inscriptions once more. The key might be in one specific phrase, something to give it power. Time felt like it was slipping like sand through fingers as she frantically searched her memory. Balance the dark, she muttered, the words echoing in her mind. Maybe it's about not just dispelling it, but inviting it to find its place. Maybe we need to give it a form of order. Order? Anna cried, incredulous. You want to negotiate with a monster? It's not a negotiation, Julia snapped. It's about controlling the chaos. If we connect the light with shadows. Before she could finish, the figure let out a roar as if it sensed their intent and lunged forward. The ground vibrated violently beneath them. Now! Mark shouted, and in a flash, they all focused on the altar. Julia, trembling, recalled the pulse she felt while touching it. With a steely resolve, she echoed the words she'd spoken before, louder this time, carrying the weight of their vulnerability. Restore the light, intertwine fates, balance the dark. This time, the ground trembled in harmony with her voice. The altar began to glow, a bright golden pulse unfurling like a flower in spring. Shadows recoiled, shrieking in anguish, but Julia pushed through the chaos, drawing energy from the newfound light. Join it! She cried, urging her friends. We need to share the burden. Mark took a deep breath and stepped closer, his fear crystallizing into action as he joined in, locking eyes with Julia. Anna hesitated, looking from Julia to the dark figure, the uncertainty evident on her face. Trust me. Julia yelled, locking her gaze onto Anna. She reached out a hand, channeling all the hope she had into it. Please. Anna finally lunged forward, determination flooding her eyes. Okay. Let us do this. As they formed a circle around the altar, energy pulsed through them, drawing the chaos into focus. The shadows reared back, twisting into a vortex, struggling against their collective strength, and just as they seemed to gain a temporary foothold, a deafening crack split the sky overhead. Ripping through the forest, vivid lightning descended, illuminating horrifying figures in the trees, visions of betrayal manifesting now alongside the anger of the dark. No! Julia screamed, panic surging, as the earth erupted beneath them. But this time, the shadows began to twist in on themselves, retreating, drawn by the light that surged, stronger than before, yet, the battle was far from over. As the shadows throttled themselves into retreat, a new form began to rise behind the figure, dark and ominous, growing larger amidst the havoc unleashed. What is that? Mark gasped, horror mingling with confusion as more figures revealed themselves, challenging the very core of their resolve. With storm clouds gathering, and betrayal echoing from the shadows, Julia felt a chill creep up her spine. They hadn't just fought one dark entity. They had awakened a force far worse. The real question now lingered thick in the air: were they ready to face the true storm that was coming? The ground beneath them shook with ever-growing fury, and the air was thick with a suffocating darkness that seemed alive. Julia's heart raced as different shapes twisted and contorted in the shadows, grotesque figures pulling themselves from the depths of the nightmare. Each pulse of light from the altar sent ripples through the air, but it wasn't enough to drown out the impending dread. Focus! Mark shouted, his voice barely breaking through the chaos. We can't give up now. Julia, keep going with the chant. With her heart in her throat, Julia leaned into the bright glow. Restore the light, intertwine fates, balance the dark. The words bubbled forth, desperate and fraught with urgency. But the darkness roared in response, twisting violently, as if it were a wounded beast. Why isn't it working? Anna's voice trembled as her eyes darted around, searching for an escape. Her breath was quick and shallow. You said we needed to control it. I thought the light would be strong enough. Julia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. But we need more than just light. We need belief, we need unity. Each of us must accept it. What do you mean? Mark asked, panic creeping into his words as the shadows loomed larger, threatening to swallow them whole. Every fear we have, every regret, it's feeding this thing. Julia gasped, feeling the pulse of the altar beating like a frantic heart. We have to face our darkness. It's part of us now. Face it? You expect me to just stand here and embrace that? Anna cried, her voice sharpening with disbelief. But just as she spoke, a dark tendril gathered around her ankle, pulling her closer to the writhing void. Anna! Julia lunged forward, but Mark gripped her tightly, eyes wide with fear. We can't lose anyone. Anna, fight it! Julia yelled, desperation flooding her voice. Whatever you're hiding, let it go. Embrace the light. Anna's breath hitched. I can't. What if it consumes me? It will. But if you don't let it out, it'll consume all of us. Julia shouted, her heart pounding as darkness encircled them, tighter than a noose. The air crackled with tension as the shadows shrieked, angry that their prey was fighting back. The altar dimmed slightly. Julia could feel it, time was running out. Okay, Anna breathed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Okay, I'll try. Closing her eyes, she took a deep breath, visualizing her fears, old wounds and haunting memories, and, one by one, surrendered them to the light. I'm ready, she whispered, her voice breaking. The altar burst alive with golden light again, illuminating Anna's despair and releasing it into the ether. The tendril around her leg loosened slightly, and hope flickered in Julia's chest. Mark was next. I've got my own demons too. He called out, anger sparking within him. I'm not afraid anymore. He stepped forward, channeling his rage into the chant. Restore the light. Intertwine fates. Julia joined, her voice steadying. Balance the dark. As they formed the circle tighter, Julia felt a surge. The shadows danced erratically, roaring in protest as the pressure of the light grew stronger. She could sense their bond strengthening, their fears flowing out like dark smoke, swallowed by the brilliance behind the altar, but the new figure behind the original darkness surged forward, a mass of twisted, feral limbs and glaring eyes, mocking their attempts with a sinister laugh that echoed through the treetops. Julia gasped, her stomach lurching. This was no ordinary creature, this was a darkness born from their own despair, a monstrous reflection of everything they fought to keep hidden. Draw your strength from your connection. Julia cried, pulling Mark and Anna closer. Together. We're not just fighting shadows, this is a part of us, and we have to defeat it together. But just as they united their voices, a forceful wind kicked up, rattling branches violently. The shadows writhed, launching towards them, and the colossal silhouette morphed, breaking into multiple figures, each embodying pain and distress. Julia's heart sank. This is only the beginning, she whispered, fear clawing at her throat. Now, bound by a bond forged in light and shadow, they stood at the edge of oblivion, knowing full well that the fight was far from over. Could they truly unravel the shadows within before darkness consumed them all? The shadows lunged, a collective of dark memories woven into a chilling tapestry of raw emotion. Each figure that emerged from the depths seemed too familiar, their silhouettes casting long, twisted reflections of the horrors that plagued their pasts. Julia's fingers trembled as she clutched the altar, drawing in the fragile remaining light, desperate not just for survival, but for clarity. Anna, how are you holding up? Mark's voice broke into her thoughts, barely a whisper beneath the cacophony. I feel them. My mistakes. They're here. Anna's breath came out in ragged gasps. It's like they know me and they want revenge. You're stronger than what you fear. Julia shouted into the shadows, hoping her confidence would seep into Anna's heart. We all are. The shadowy figures twisted, forming grotesque shapes that reached toward Anna with claws made of despair. Julia saw the fear in Anna's eyes, felt it echo within her own heart. Fight it. She urged, channeling her own internal battle. We can't let the darkness take us. Anna was still, her eyes closed, feeling more than seeing, drawing strength from the bond that tied them. Julia glanced at Mark, who met her gaze with determination. Together, they pushed deeper into the chant, their voices intertwining with purpose. Restore the light. Intertwine fates. Balance the dark. The illuminative pulse from the altar surged, brightening the edges of the swirling shadows, but the multitude of figures didn't retreat. They lunged closer, hissing, their voices a visceral mix of pleas and taunts. They unveiled all that was hidden: lost loves, mistakes, the screams of moments that broke them. Julia faltered for a brief second, a panic rising in her throat, then came a voice, more inflected with sorrow than malice. You think you can cleanse it all away? You're running from the truth, Julia. The darkness bore down, revealing the face of her past, the one she regretted. You failed. It hissed, a mockery of her insecurities. You'll always fail. No. Julia screamed, the sound erupting from a place deep inside, raw and powerful. You don't own me. I own my choices. With that declaration, something shifted in the energy around them. For the first time, the shadows hesitated. Mark stepped forward, his eyes ignited with purpose. Let it out, Julia. Don't hide from it. Embrace what you are. Anna opened her eyes, shimmering with courage. Together, we'll draw light from our darkness. We're not just fighting these shadows. We're facing our truths. They chanted louder, the ground shaking as the darkness contorted violently, shrieking in response to their combined strength. The altar flared, sending waves of golden energy rippling around them, illuminating the terror that had sought to consume their souls, but it wasn't enough. The figures regrouped, diving back in relentless waves, fiercer, angrier, clawing at the strings of doubt threatening their unity. Each second felt like an eternity, their hope flickering like a delicate flame amid a storm. "We have to go deeper." Julia gasped, her heart racing, the image of shadows morphing into reflections of themselves becoming long-lost memories. "Face it all. Do you have the strength?" Mark asked breathlessly, glancing back at the chaos swirling behind them, her breath hitched, a lump forming in her throat. "I don't know, but we have to try." With a single, decisive push, they linked hands tightly, channeling every ounce of fear, pain, and doubt into a fierce declaration of existence. "We will no longer be bound by what holds us back. We are stronger together." As the shadows roared, their presence sinking deeper into the earth, a blinding light erupted from the altar, engulfing them. But just as the burst radiated, darkness coiled tighter, desperate to cling to its prey. A final guttural scream echoed, vibrating through their bones, as the light threatened to crumble under the weight of the shadows. Did they have enough strength to transform their fear into light before it swallowed them whole? The answer loomed just beyond their grasp, and the haunting question hung in the air like a storm cloud, darker than any they had faced. The blinding light exploded, enveloping them in warmth as shadows coiled around their ankles like icy serpents. Julia gasped, tension thrumming beneath her skin. The altar pulsed, but her heart raced faster, a relentless drumbeat urging them on. "We need to push through." Mark's grip tightened. "We can't let go. Julia, think of everything we've overcome." His voice steadied her, images of their past zoomed through her mind, shared laughter, late-night coffee talks, moments of vulnerability. Every inch of connection echoed the strength that coursed through her now. But the shadows retaliated. They squealed and writhed, tugging at their memories, some dreadfully familiar. Julia felt them slip through the corners of her consciousness, desperate to consume her like a feast of scars. Every anguished whisper shook her resolve. "Weak failure forever lost, fight back." Anna's voice broke through the confusion, stronger now, yet trembling, too. The shadows hung above her, threatening to drown her spirit, but she stood firm. "Those aren't our truths. They're lies." Together, they raised their voices in unison, the words transforming into a shield against the chaos that swirled around them. "We are not defined by our mistakes. We reclaim our stories." With each declaration, waves of light erupted from the altar, causing the shadows to shrink and hiss. Tension crackled in the air, but hope dared to bloom within their hearts. "I am more than my past." Julia shouted, courage filling her veins. The shadows trembled, momentarily losing their form. But their fury only grew as they recoiled, gathering strength for one final surge. A darkness deeper than night encroached, threatening to snuff out the light they fought to maintain. "Julia!" Mark cried, fear slicing through his voice. "We can't let this take us. Not now." Just as the shadows lunged, fierce whispers swirled around them. They lashed out, revealing deeply buried regrets and achingly familiar faces from long ago, friends they had lost. Laughter turned to silence. Julia's heart ached, and doubt seeped into her resolve. What if they were right? What if these shadows were nothing but portents of the truths she'd never face? "Remember!" Anna shouted, breaking through Julia's cloud of despair. "Remember who we are, not who we were. We are not alone in this." Julia pushed against the tide of darkness. She thought of the bonds forged in trials, of moments shared and promises made. "Together, we are unbreakable." In a raw surge of determination, she closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, pulling from the depths of herself the courage, the light, the truth that lay within. As she exhaled, waves of bright energy burst forth like a fountain, engulfing them entirely. Light clashed with shadow in a spectacular display. The screams of the shadows echoed, a cacophony of terror and defeat, but then a rupture, a crack in the reality around them. Julia's heart raced, thrumming with an ominous echo. The shadows, frantically writhing, found an opening. Her breath caught as the figures converged for one last, desperate strike. "Julia! Hold on!" Mark hollered, his words barely cutting through the swirling chaos. The foundation beneath them shuddered violently. What had they awakened? Unexplainable dread filled the air as they stood on the brink of a colossal struggle, the final clash between light and dark. And in this moment of trembling uncertainty, the shadows whispered promises of power, begging her to join them. Would holding on be enough, or would surrender become the only option left? The question loomed over them, a harbinger of a decision that would mark the fate of all they held dear. The tension hung heavy in the air as Julia, Mark, and Anna stood their ground, facing the roiling shadows that threatened to consume them. The altar pulsed with a heavenly light, much brighter than they had ever witnessed, but the shadows remained relentless, clawing at the edges of their souls. "We can't falter now," Julia called, her heart hammering against her chest. "We've come too far." Each pulse of light had drawn them closer to a fragile hope, but as the shadows swarmed, doubts surged back like restless phantoms. "Where's the unity we felt?" Mark's voice was strained, uncertainty creeping in. He looked to Julia, a mixture of fear and desperation clouding his eyes. "Can we really fight back?" "Yes," she insisted fiercely, wiping the beads of sweat from her brow. "We have to remember, we are stronger together." With renewed determination, Julia wrapped her fingers around the altar, letting the golden glow weave intertwining threads through their hands. "Join with me." Mark and Anna stepped closer, gripping her hands tightly. They formed an unbreakable bond, a circle of light amidst the chaotic dark. "Restore the light," Julia chanted, her voice rising above the din intertwined fates. "Balance the dark." As they spoke the ancient words together, the altar shone even brighter, resonating powerfully into the forest like a heartbeat, steady and unyielding. The shadows recoiled, screeching against the splendor, tearing at the barriers they had built. But then, the dark figure regarding them hissed, its voice dripping with contempt. "You think mere words can save you?" It sneered, gathering shadows to bulk out its ethereal form. "You have awakened forces beyond your comprehension. Surrender and accept your end." Julia shuddered at the malice in its tone but tightened her grip. "We refuse to give in." She poured her thoughts into the connection of their clasped hands, the laughter shared, the bonds of friendship shared, the courage built over their journey. Suddenly, the shadows surged, closing in with an electrifying fury. They twisted like serpents, overwhelming the light for just a moment. Julia's breath caught, fear threatened to consume her. "Hold strong," Mark encouraged with clenched teeth, pulling Julia closer. "Let us use everything we've got." With every ounce of desperation and hope, Julia forced herself to remember all they had faced together. The laughter, the shared dreams, the moments where vulnerability brought them closer. She felt the warmth of their unity enveloping her. "Focus on the light." Anna rallied, her eyes fierce with determination. "We can channel everything we've learned, everything we are." Suddenly, there was a blinding flash. The altar erupted with energy like a sun rising, blasting the shadows back. "We are not just friends, we are a force," Julia shouted, her veins alight with purpose. From the depths of their core, the three of them harmonized, voices rising into a thunderous chorus. The very earth shook beneath them, the winds howled like ancient spirits rejoicing. The shadows writhed, twisting and contorting, shrieking in agony as the light swept over them. The dark figure let out a guttural roar, but it was met by waves of radiant love that surged stronger. Venomous whispers rose, clawing at their resolve, but the trio pushed on. "We accept our darkness, but we fight for our light." As their voices combined into a singular declaration, the light began to envelop the shadows entirely, locking them in an embrace that felt eternal. The air shimmered with an iridescent glow as the darkness shrank, screaming, twisting, before finally collapsing upon itself in a swirl of despair. Then, silence fell. The trio stood breathless, the forest still around them, the moonlight illuminating the trail of devastation behind. The altar pulsed gently, now bathed in a soft golden hue, the world around them appearing almost surreal. "We did it," Mark whispered, tears glimmering in his eyes. Julia turned to her friends, overwhelmed with gratitude and relief. "We faced our pasts, and we survived. Together." Anna nodded, breathing heavily, but a smile broke. It felt like a new dawn after a long night. They embraced tightly, the warmth between them radiating the finality of their shared fight. "But the whispers," Mark hesitated. "What if they come back?" "We stay vigilant," Julia said, her voice determined. "We learned so much. Memories don't define us, they guide us. Each battle strengthens our bond, not just with each other, but with everyone we meet along the way." They stepped back into the darkness of the forest, hearts resilient, hands still intertwined. As they walked away from the altar, the air felt lighter, even filled with whispers of ancient tales that hint at the struggles ahead, but they no longer felt alone. "Whatever comes next," Mark said, glancing at his friends, "we face it together." With newfound strength, they forged ahead into the unknown, armed with the light that had become their shield, knowing the journey had forever changed them, and that they would always stand united against the shadows that lingered just outside the glow. And as they took their stride, the sunlight streamed through the branches, casting a path forward, a promise of hope and unending stories waiting to be written. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling finale. Your support makes all the difference.